How's it going, everyone? I hope that you're all having an amazing day. This video, I'm going to be going over all of the changes coming to Apex Legends Season 14 in regards to the Kings Canyon map update. I was going to include all of this in the Season 14 patch notes video, which I'm working on and is coming out soon after this one, so be sure to keep an eye out for that. But there is so much information about the Kings Canyon map changes that it just has to be covered in its own video. If this video helps you out at all, then help me out by hitting that like button. But let's go ahead and cut this plug and get right into it. Starting off with the new point of interest that they're coming out with called Relic. They say that this is one of the most frequent pieces of feedback that they hear about Kings Canyon, which is the overall map size. And over time, Kings Canyon has continued to shrink smaller and smaller. And this basically leads to Kings Canyon being a quick game, quick match, battle royale. It's a lot different than the other maps in its current iteration. And apparently with this new point of interest, that was the primary concern that they were trying to address. You can see here that this place is absolutely massive, and it looks like it's taking over where that huge gap in the skull is, all of that unplayable area that you can't work around. And it looks like not only are they adding in the skull in the town under it, but there's also stuff off behind it. You can see back here like these tubes in this giant wall that's seemingly blocking the edge of the map. They also say that in Season 5, Skulltown and Thunderdome were sunk by a massive explosion caused by Loba. Now that the salvage operation is complete, the Syndicate has rebuilt the area for the Apex games. Dredging machines have refilled the space with sand from the ocean floor, and a new battleground has been rebuilt with the iconic skull as its centerpiece. So this is not like a time reverse, time loop thing where a less rotted version of the skull is coming out. Actually, they completely recreated this thing. This is a synthetic replica, if you will. With Relic, they saw an opportunity to bring back gameplay that many players loved from the original Kings Canyon, but with a point of interest more appropriately sized for the overall health of the map. I'm excited to jump into Relic first off, and I'm also just excited to get back on Kings Canyon. It's always a fun map to play. But moving on to modified POIs, they have modified Cage, Hillside, and Relight. They go on to say the Cage is a memorable structure on Kings Canyon, but they felt its defensibility was too high for a point of interest positioned directly in a high traffic junction. This was contributing to third parties as well as player siege squads entrenched inside the tower. In order to resolve these fights quicker, we decided to simplify the top of the structure. Oh man, they are completely yoinking the walls off of this thing. The top of the cage is still a power position, they say, but players entering the area will be able to put additional pressure on the dominant squad. Because it's easier to enter or leave, players should now more easily be able to capitalize on an advantage and end the fight. They go on to say that they felt similarly about the Hillside POI near containment, where squads trying to rotate through would find themselves caught in prolonged engagements between multiple squads. This is that place with the two buildings, as you can see, and it kind of looks like they're just yoinking the buildings out. They don't, oh, can I slide this? Oh, you can slide this. What? Look at this. Okay, we'll have to go back up and slide the other ones. Wow, that's cool, bro. Oh, I like that. Oh, I like that. That is smooth on the website too. Oh, that's just a piece of that's a piece of coding beauty right here. Whoever slapped this together, it is excellent. So you can see that they removed the buildings entirely. Kind of looks like they possibly even shortened it just a little bit, but maybe not. It still has this here. Maybe it just looks a little bit shorter without the buildings there, but you still have plenty of cover to play right here. These chests, this will still be a decent high ground to hold, but you just won't be able to defensively hold up here with a caustic. You'll probably be better off holding like this rock or something up here. Let's go back up and see if there's any other ones that we can slide through. Starting off with Skulltown, you can see that this is the Skulltown that we are left with after Loba sunk it, and then that, oh wow, that is a lot of land, and that is a lot of land. I'm not 100% sure if that's going to make the biggest difference in Kings Canyon. If anything, this is gonna become such a hot point of interest that the maps might flow out the same anyways, but it kind of looks like you might have a backwards escape route from that side. And then this one, I actually like what they did here because the walls and grates were just too much, and it actually looks like if you're Valk or Ashe, you might be able to position yourself up here and still play a decently blocked off area, but it's going to be a lot more secluded to specific legends. Moving on though, they say in order to reduce this friction, they have built this area from the ground up with defensible interior spaces. Their goal with this change is to resolve fights faster and allow rotations through this area. As a bonus change, they've restored some buildings that previously existed at Broken Relay. So you can see here, this is the area with the zip line way off on the back end of the map, and oh yeah, there's a few more buildings in that area. And zip lines. It's going to give you a lot more playability in this area, because if you were a team right here needing to rotate through here, you could be held here, here, here. It was a little bit rough, but now it looks like you'll be able to push here, maybe zip line there, position around a lot of these buildings. That's really nice. They go on and say that they really loved this zipline gameplay over the ravine, and they saw an opportunity to bring it back. And they've also renamed this POI from Broken Relay to Basin to more accurately describe how it appears in this version of Kings Canyon. Moving on to the next section entirely, it's labeled Modified Rotations, and they say that overall they felt that on Kings Canyon, squads didn't need to fully commit to a decision as much as they needed to on other maps. Frequent cut-throughs made it easy to interrupt fights without consequence. For this update, they wanted to reward players for planning their rotations thoughtfully by making some key changes. So we can see here, this is the path that branches off into two separate areas, and it looks like they're closing that off entirely. So this is going to turn into, wow, that's going to be actually huge on the map, because if I'm not mistaken, this rotates off to the right and spits you out in a completely different area than this does. So this is going to change rotating at least this direction entirely, and it's also going to make this a huge pinch point. They say that this major rotation in the center of the map connected destroyed bridges, river center, and hillside, and they felt that this rotation was too fast, contributing to a high amount of third parties at river center and hillside. To help make the flow of squads more predictable, they've removed the connection to destroyed bridges. They go on and say they've also removed this cave connection between Marketplace and River Center to fully stabilize the flow of squads around River Center. They expect that squads will experience less third parties in the Central's locations on Kings Canyon, resulting in a much smoother mid-game. So we're looking at the big box now, and this is the new version of the big box. I don't even know, these are two different areas. They've also removed the connection between Marketplace and River Center. I'm not seeing what's happening right there. Go ahead and let me know down in the comments if you guys understand what they're saying with this picture in this description. I am not following that at all. Let's start with the picture this time and maybe be able to piece it together better. Here's the old version, and here is the new version with a big gaping hole on the left side that looks like it's going to be rotating you in. So, and they say at Marketplace, they've moved the small cave connection at the back to a more visible location and widened it significantly. Oh, so you know that little crevice that you can sneak through on the back, that's just a tiny little thing, super choke point. This is going to replace that. They say that this should make it more difficult for players to ambush squads at Marketplace and improve player awareness overall. All right, starting with the picture again. We're looking at this is the old one, and then this is the new one that is way opened up. We're looking at a wall here, and now it's completely widened up. They go on and say that they've made a similar modification to this choke point near the cage. The amount of new playable space is significant and gives players better visibility of the surrounding area. So they've made a ton of interesting map changes. They are really trying to open Kings Canyon up. This is like the most amount of very significant map changes I've seen them make to a map ever. And they're not just making the changes like slapping in POIs and throwing in some cool new assets. They are actually making changes to better the gameplay of Kings Canyon, and that is super intriguing. I am excited to see how that ends up playing out. But moving on to the next section entirely, it's called Loot Refresh, and they say that over time, the loot quantity and quality across points of interest has become a frequent point of feedback. They say that in this update, they've taken the time to re-examine loot on Kings Canyon at a holistic level to get it back to a healthy spot. They go on to say that loot disparity has made them rebalance the distribution of loot across a number of points of interest to address major loot disparity between key points of interest. Crash Site and Spotted Lakes have been taken down a peg, and several older points of interest have been given a much needed bump, such as Runoff, Hydro Dam, Swamps, and Octane's Gauntlet. Moving on to loot quality, they've made significant changes to the loot rarity zones across Kings Canyon. They say that many points of interest felt prominent enough for medium or rare tier loot simply weren't tagged for it. The quality of loot you can expect to find should feel much more intuitive in this version of Kings Canyon. Moving on to the final one, which is loot quantity. They say that Kings Canyon's loot total count was much lower compared to their other maps. The biggest offenders were buildings from the original versions of the map that contained less loot overall than buildings introduced in subsequent map updates. After taking steps to address this, the total loot that can now spawn is roughly comparable to Olympus. That's cool that they're working with the loot, and like I said, they're not only making changes visibly to the map so the map plays out differently, but they're taking a look from the ground up. How does the loot play out? How are the rotations playing out? And I think that if this ends up working out really well, they are going to knock this out of the park. But moving on to the next section, which is skybox and lighting, and you can see it right here in this side by side. There is a huge difference. It is way brighter in the new Kings Canyon, but let's go ahead and take a full view of it here. You can see that's the Wraith portal there, and that's the Wraith portal there. I really like it. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments about the brighter map, and also this skybox is really cool, but I'm kind of like wondering where did this mountain form? You know what I mean? None of that was really there. Just kind of changing the skybox is a little bit weird, but I gotta say it looks really nice. But moving on to the next section, which is additional changes. I think this is the last section here, and we are just going to breeze through this. They say that they've made a large number of quality of life changes all over Kings Canyon, and here are some of the highlights. They've added a new raised walkway to help players rotate between destroyed bridges and river center. They've added 2 sets of stairs and 2 zip lines to help non-movement legends access the walls at Repulsor. They've added 1 vertical zip line to help non-movement legends access the wall at Artillery, 2 vertical zip lines to help players access the walkways at Swamps. They've added a new explosive hold at the Swamps. They've removed a number of trees at the forest to improve visibility. They've removed 2 of the 3 charge towers at Capacitor, removed 5 jump towers in the area that would benefit from slower rotations, and they have fixed many bugs in bad end circles. And that is it. That has got to be like a good 15 to 20 minutes of me reading through this before I chop it up. But that is all of the changes that are coming to Kings Canyon. I will be going over the patch notes and diving into and talking about all of those just like I did this. So keep an eye out for that. If you're still here, let me know by saying made it in the comments or something so I can give you an extra shout out. But that is all of the information that I have in this video. I hope you guys all have an amazing day. I'm out.